Hello and welcome back to One Trek Mind with me, Raptor.
And me, Michael.
And today we're going over episode 5 of Discovery, that is the episode Mirrors. And this is basically the episode that explains what's going on, essentially, isn't it? This is who Mol and Locke are episode.
Yep.
To explain why they're after what they're after, to explain who these characters are. And I suppose the biggest thing about this episode is that it's confirmed now that Locke is a Breen, and this episode basically highlights that the Breen are naturally kind of semi-gelatinous, which does explain why, very gooey, which does explain why I suppose the Dominion was all okay with them. And they have a culture of not showing people that are not Breen their solid face. A bit like the Mandalorians don't let people see their face.
Well, to be clear, the Mandalorians don't have that as a rule. Like, that is a very, very ancient rule that in the show The Mandalorian, his little cult feel that way. Other Mandalorians show their face all the time, so it was kind of just his little group of people. But Mandalorians in general, at least in a more modern times in Star Wars, like, they show their face.
At least now we have confirmed what the Breen are like. The episode is principally about Burnham and Booker, primarily. They find that Locke and Mol have gone into this interdimensional portal, and inside they discover the Terran ISS Enterprise, where Mol and Locke are currently holed up. Discovery loses contact with Burnham and Book, so they're on their own, and most of the episode is just on the ISS Enterprise with those 4 characters.
Yep. For me, again, we were just discussing this. My biggest question in the whole episode is why it takes place on the ISS Enterprise, considering there's no Terran characters to play off of for anything. Like, there's like this little backstory to why the ship is there and where all the crew went and everything, but you don't actually see any of it or, talk to any of the Terran characters, which again I feel like is a slight missed opportunity. I personally was hoping I'd see Terran Captain Pike, but alas, it was not meant to be. And they have a little, I guess, Easter egg drops there about, High Chancellor Spock and his rebellion against the crew, which then spawned into a much larger mutiny with the rest of the crew, or at least part of it, led by Saru. Again, I don't hate it. It's interesting enough, but the actual episode having Mol and Locke's backstory and Book and Michael actually connecting with them a little bit could have really taken place on any ship or in any location, so I don't exactly know why they did this, except for the 2 obvious reasons. One being, an Easter egg and nod to the original series ISS Enterprise, and 2, being able to reuse the sets from Strange New Worlds, which are on the same lot and everything, so it would just save some money, which I'm not against that. Star Trek has always done stuff like that.
I don't think they're filming, actually, are they? So they would just be sitting there. So
they didn't film these at the same time, yeah. So they probably were just hanging out there, and they were like, well, might as well use them. And I personally love the sets on Strange New Worlds, so again, I don't hate it, but I still don't exactly see the purpose behind it, other than let's reuse these sets and a little bit of nostalgia, or not even really nostalgia, since it does look so different from the original series version of it, but again, just an Easter egg, a little nod to it to make people go, oh, I remember those episodes from the original Star Trek.
It was nice. I think we both agree that it was nice that Rayna actually took Burnham aside before she and Book went off on another super dangerous mission together. Rayna actually took her aside and said, basically, what the fuck are you doing?
I'm just like, this is a very dangerous mission for you.
Finally, somebody calls out the problem that that this show has consistently had for all of its seasons. that the principal character and now captain keeps going off and doing dangerous stuff. Burnham, totally disregards him and just kind of fobs it off.
Well, her reasons were at least pretty sound in this case, I think.
I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, I think she was entirely right. It's like, Book has a connection to this person, so there's a tactical reason to bring him. And bringing a security team would definitely send the message of, like, yeah, we're here to fuck your shit up. And they were not trying to do that, so I get it. But the problem is, every episode before this has also been Michael and one other character without a security team. Or her on the ship, and a security team themselves go out to do the dangerous mission. So in that way, I feel like it feels kind of forced for her to have that reason. But again, on a case-by-case basis, it's a pretty sound argument to be like, I have my reasons for doing this with just me and Book. It would have worked a lot better for me if, she wasn't on every single away mission. But again, this is Discovery. Don't think we're ever going to get our wish on that.
I mean, I would point out that, yes, she might have gone with the plan to not fuck shit up with a security detail, etc. But they do have to have 3 forced action scenes, because every single episode of Discovery needs an action scene, and we have 3. We have 2 shoot-ups and a punch-up in this particular episode between all of those 4 characters. After the first one, I was fine. The 2 that follow, I was like, for heaven's sake, do we have to have another pointless action sequence instead of just getting on with something more interesting?
I personally wouldn't say 3, because the second shootout lasts less than 15 seconds. It's literally just shoot, shields come down. Okay, we have to come up with a plan. So I don't really care about that one. I don't really count that one. The second one with Locke and Michael, again, I don't hate it, because again, it feels true to the character of Locke, at least, where he's like, I'm gonna fuck you up if you don't get out of my way and let me get to the person I love. I'm like, I get that. I don't think it's super forced, but again,
Michael doesn't get injured at all.
I mean, she's a trained Vulcan fighter. Again, I can kind of get behind it, and I don't think we've ever seen the Breen go hand to hand with anyone, so I guess this is sort of a canon way of explaining the Breen are in fact not as physically capable as Vulcan characters or humans trained in Vulcan combat. I suppose I just took a little bit of issue with it because again, it is a slight Discovery problem where it's like every episode does have to have some kind of action sequence. And I guess you could chalk that up to not even a Discovery problem, but more modern era of television and film where it's like, well, you gotta have your action scenes, so here we go. But again, I wasn't like offended by it or anything, and I did genuinely like the very first one just with all the holographic images. I thought that was a clever idea, but I do feel like that kind of broke canon a little bit for me, because I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to have holographic tech on the original ISS Enterprise. Like, in that era, I'm pretty sure we didn't have holograms. I guess some people will probably say, well, they had the rec room. Like, okay, whatever. Like, I'll go with it, but I feel like that was slightly breaking canon, just a tiny bit. But it was a clever idea, so I'm okay with it.
I mean, for me, the actual most boring parts of this episode was all the conventional Discovery stuff. The more interesting bit were the flashback scenes to Mol and Locke's developing, how they met on this Breen station, how Mol essentially coerced Locke into helping her because Locke is a member of Breen royalty, but he was demoted, and Mol used that to gain an advantage. But over the flashbacks, we see they develop a passionate relationship with one another, to the point where Locke trusts Mol enough to show her his solid form, which gets Locke eventually into trouble, and to protect Mol, he decides to betray his own kind to go off with Mol on her quest to basically... Maul's quest is to...
It's kind of derisive.
American... It's kind of like the American dream, I think, is the quest. She was promised by her father and Book's mentor that they would go off and be on this new colony world in the Gamma Quadrant and live an amazing life. And her father basically abandoned her and her mother, which is terrible. But that's what she wants. She wants to go and get the life that she was promised but didn't get. That's why she's pissy as well with Book, because obviously Book's mentor, her father, abandoned her, and I would be pissy as well. I mean, my real father practically abandoned me and my mum, so I kind of relate on a level.
I mean, it's got to sting a little bit also to see the person that your father abandoned you for, essentially. It's like, yeah, he treated me great and he left you. That sucks for you, I'm sorry. I believe he's, trying to empathize with her, and he definitely wants her to, come around and not continue down this path, because it's only going to lead to them either in prison or dead. So I believe his genuineness, but I do think he, as a character, is struggling to reach her kind of for that reason. Like, he envisions her father as a completely different person to how she envisions him, which in a way I like. I like that there is a connection between the two. You can see on both of their faces they are kind of trying to come to an understanding, but it's just kind of getting hitched up on the fact that, yeah, she was abandoned by this guy that you say was so great. But there are little moments where he's like, he always talked about you, and I could tell how much he loved you, which clearly got her to at least second guess her opinions about him a little bit. So I like it. I like that it's not too easy for him to reach her, but there is an understanding that is kind of being reached. They're getting there very slowly. And I agree that I think the flashback sequences in this episode are the best, dealing with Maul and Locke, because I already kind of liked them as characters going into the season. I found them very interesting, and now I genuinely like them as characters. I think their reasons are at least pretty sound. As villains go, they're not just mustache twirly looking for power. Like, they just love each other and want to escape all the bullshit that life has thrown their way. And they're not just going to kill anyone and everyone in order to do it. They are willing to actually talk to Michael and Book. I really liked, before the fight sequence, that conversation between Michael and Locke, where it does seem like they do come to a fairly reasonable understanding with each other, where they're like, you love this person more than anything. I love Book more than anything. I totally get it. And I will try to make sure that you two are not separated, when the Federation gets their hands on you, essentially. And I also appreciate that Michael does not back down on that. She's not like, oh, we'll figure something out. We'll let you get away. She's like, we're gonna give you a trial. Like, I have to take you in. I am a captain of a Federation ship. I have to do this to you guys, but I'm going to try and make it as not painful as possible. So again, I like the nuances that were happening between the characters in this episode.
The only good discovery part of this episode that I liked was the very end, essentially. Maul, in an attempt to free Locke and Burnham from the sickbay lockdown that they accidentally activate during the firefight, causes an explosion, and it sets the Enterprise off on a collision course with the perimeter of this anomaly, which is going to blow it up. Rayner on the Discovery has to resort to asking openly on the bridge for them to come up with a solution to keep the anomaly open wide enough to get the Enterprise through. We have a nice scene of everybody on the bridge troubleshooting the problem, essentially, until they come up with a solution to just use photon torpedoes just full of antimatter instead of the usual payload, essentially.
See, that was probably my least favorite scene in the episode, if I'm being honest.
Really? You didn't like the troubleshooting on the bridge?
No, because I could tell, script-wise, the writers of this episode just said, technobabble, 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 a little bit more technobabble, technobabble. And then they got some Star Trek aficionados to tell them, like, okay, say this and say that and say this, and that'll at least somewhat fit the problem. And it was just technobabble overload to the point where I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck you guys are saying. Like, I'm tuning out. My eyes are glazing over right here, dude. I appreciated seeing so many different people trying to solve the problem, because that is a very Star Trek thing to do, but the amount of technobabble that they, like, sputtered out so rapidly right there, I'm like, you have completely lost me, dude. I am just waiting for you to tell me what's gonna work and go with it. And then I feel like, even though it was moderately funny, it was almost a little bit of a slap to the audience for him to say, like, wait, what is the hexagon thing supposed to do? And he's like, you don't care, you just know it's gonna work. And that very clearly seemed like they were telling the audience, like, stop trying to break apart the science of this and just fucking go with it. And again, I found it a little funny, but I'm like, I guess. Like, basically telling Star Trek fans, like, stop being so nitpicky on it, just go with it.
I was kind of expecting something different as well, like, because I thought what they were going to do was, like, launch 6 photon torpedoes in a hexagon pattern all together at once, which would, I think, have looked a bit cooler than just one following the other. I would have preferred, like, a full 6 salvo at once, which we know, we've seen, you know, the Enterprise D fire full-on salvos of multiple torpedoes together. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed, actually, by what they decided to make it look like. But I did like the fact that other people got to help troubleshoot the problem in the episode.
With the suspicious lack of Detmer and Woshikun.
Yes.
Like, I don't know who those two people were at the front of the bridge there, but did not go unnoticed to me that it was, once again, not Woshikun and Detmer. We were talking about this a little bit, but again, I don't blame the show for this. I'm very near certain they just couldn't get those actors to show up for some of these episodes. That is my leading theory. And if that is the case, then, well, there's nothing you can really do about that. They kind of just had to say, okay, well, they're not here, so we're going to have these unnamed characters throw in their ideas as well. But it was, I don't know, a little disappointing to me to not see them. Again, I realize if they couldn't get the actors, there's nothing they could have done about it, but it was just a little lacking in that department, which is, I think, another reason why the scene didn't really work for me. Like, massive technobabble overload, and there's only, like, 2 characters there, Reese and Linus, who I actually have come to know over time. The other ones, I'm like, I don't know who you are, so... That is twice now, though, that Reese has come up with a correct plan, so good on you.
Yes, it is.
Lieutenant Commander Reese. He's Lieutenant Commander, right?
Yes. We finally had it confirmed what the fucking hierarchy of the bridge was last episode.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to say this. I know that Michael doesn't care.
I do not.
I care.
I would like to say, but preemptively, I do not care about this, but go ahead.
I'm pretty sure some of the audience would care. It bugs me that the ISS Enterprise is not the correct design of the Constitution. Primarily because Season 5's Enterprise episode, In a Mirror Darkly, featured the traditional Constitution class as the USS Defiant, which is how the Terran Empire gets these ships in the first place, gets the designs of these ships in the first place. We know that as far as Picard Season 3 is confirmed, this model of Constitution class is considered canonical. As far as the Constitution redesign in Strange New Worlds goes, I accept that redesigning something is fine. I accept. However, this for me felt like the perfect opportunity to use the traditional Constitution class, because you're not going to fuck around with Strange New Worlds' canon by using the ISS Enterprise from the original show and Enterprise Season 5. You can just claim that that was their pattern of Constitution and our Constitution looks a little different. Yes, it would have taken them more work, because they couldn't just use the CGI model of the Enterprise they already have. However, it bugs me that, again, They cannot decide what the fucking ship is supposed to look like.
Well, it
I
wouldn't
know
have been
it
more
doesn't
work.
matter.
They already have the CGI
doesn't
version
matter.
of the Enterprise from Picard. So, it wouldn't have been more work. They would have just changed the eye.
True. It just bugs me because this is going to be the ongoing thing. There's going to always be this canon disconnect, same as Discovery had with the Klingons until they tried to explain it. Like, there's always going to be, as a result of this redesign of the Constitution class they've gone ahead and done, there's always going to now be a disconnect with not only Star Trek Enterprise, original show Star Trek, and Picard Season 3, and then Discovery and Strange New Worlds. There's going to be a big canon disconnect here with the design of the ship. I know for you, Michael, it doesn't matter as much, but as someone who really loves the design of starships, not just in Star Trek, but Star Wars starship design, the Orville starship design, Stargate's starship design. No, I'm a starship design aficionado, and for that to exist does bug me on a slightly nerdy level.
It doesn't bug me because I can very easily say Picard is not canon because I hate that show. So I'm like,
I mean, I hate
that
it as
scene
well,
never
and I
happened.
would love to make it not canon, but you would then have to also make Star Trek Enterprise not canon.
No, because
series,
I completely disagree with that. Because, again, those were made 20, 30, 40 years ago, and modern audiences have a different eye for things. And I personally, having not grown up on Star Trek, I don't like the original Enterprise design. I think it's very boring. It's too round, too detail-less. I would have been annoyed if I did see it here, because I'd be like, that looks gross. And I know that's going to make some people mad, but I just don't like that design. I would have rather preferred the Strange New Worlds version of it, because it just looks better to me, and it fits the visual style of modern storytelling a lot better. So I personally choose to take that one little scene from Picard and say, that never happened. I don't like that show. So I'm fine with it. I really don't care. The only thing I care about is the red and gold not being on it.
Somehow I kind of think you'd have a different opinion if they decided to stick a window on the front of Voyager and redesign that ship entirely.
I mean, I would have been fine with the window. I've told you many times I don't care about the window on the front, because they all have a window on the top. Every ship over the bridge has a big, like, little bubble window, so the window thing, I don't get that argument. I'm like, they already have all had a window on the bridge. What makes a difference putting it in front?
Sure, we can have a discussion at some point about windows and j.j.abrams' move to have a window at the front of the bridge. I honestly don't have much more else I want to say about this episode, because to me, the only interesting bits were the Mole and Locke stuff, and the rest of it, the Burnham and Book stuff, I've kind of... this is the second time we've had Burnham and Book with, off on their own doing something else. We had it on Trill. We've had it quite a lot through Season 3, and I'm just bored of them. I don't care anymore about their particular will they, won't they relationship. I'm bored of it.
I'm not super jazzed on it either. I wouldn't say bored, because I did like some of the scenes they had together, but wasn't particularly holding my interest. I would agree that Maul and Locke's stuff in the episode, which, to be fair, was the majority of the episode, I liked that just enough. One scene I would like to point out that I did really like was Tilly talking to Culber at the very end of the episode, and basically a discussion about how he might be taking a slightly spiritual turn based on all the events that have happened to him. I am not a spiritual person at all, but I kind of like when scientific characters have their very steadfast, I'm not religious beliefs challenged a little bit in at least slightly nuanced ways. And I like that conversation. It was a nice moment between those two characters. A little weird to me that they set it up so early in the episode and then only got back to it so much later. But I suppose it would have been too much of a break in the pacing if they had done it any other time, so it's fine. But I did like that conversation.
I actually really hated that. The setup made it seem so serious. Like, when they have that bit in the sick bay, like, it seems really serious and something important. And then the episode, at the end of the episode, it's basically, oh, I've had all this stuff happen to me and I'm excited, but my husband doesn't like change. And I was like,
the unknown.
Is that it? Is that all this was about? You set this up as like, oh, there's something important that he needs. Like, maybe he was dying, or maybe he no longer loves him, or I was expecting something a bit more than, I'm excited by random space stuff, and my husband might not be, and this is a problem for him. It just felt like it. I was like, what is this? What is this thing? Oh, is that it?
Well, I mean, I don't think the Stamets part was really, like, important to the scene. I think it was just kind of a throwaway, like, you know, Paul doesn't like the unknown and more than likely is very anti-religious, spiritual for that reason, because he's like, it's all unknown faith bullshit to him. And I might start to be feeling that, which, you know, is what it is. I don't think they were implying a conflict from that at all. I just liked it because, again, it gave me a little bit more insight to the character of Culber, who I personally really disliked in season 2 in particular, with the I don't love my husband anymore, but I do. Like, that just drove me insane, and I found to be really, like, forced and weird. I just didn't like it. So I just liked getting to know him a little bit more, and to have some sort of continuation to his experience of having his body hijacked by another consciousness, which, to me, I've always found it super fucking weird in almost every other Star Trek, where that happens a lot, where characters will be, like, possessed by something, or in DS9, where Jadzia has her various past lives take over her friends' bodies and everything. And I'm like, how do you all not talk about this more? Like, would that not psychologically screw you up in, like, astronomical ways? Everyone's so chill about it. So I enjoyed that he did, in fact, say, that really shook me up a little bit. That was an extremely weird experience, and I don't exactly know how to process it. I'm like, finally, someone has the same perspective as I probably would, saying, that's super weird, and I don't really know what to do with that.
I kind of like Janeway's response to when Kim says that something was really weird, and she just responds with, we're Starfleet officers, weird is part of the job. And that's all they say about it.
Well, again, weird is different than I had a whole other consciousness control my body while I was presently there witnessing it happening, but not at the wheel of the car. Like, that is so astronomically different than, like, oh, we went through some sort of time anomaly, or this strange exotic material doesn't behave in ways we really expected. Like, having your body snatched is utterly terrifying to me, so I've always found it very frustrating when other characters in other Star Trek shows just shake it off like, okay, well, that happened. Like, again, I feel like you would be severely psychologically damaged by this, especially when you're not Trill and you're not literally designed to do that. I'm like, I think that would really screw a person up, or at least make you question, like, everything.
I mean, it happens so often in Star Trek. They probably have a sorry your body got taken over by an unknown consciousness gift card or something.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of those other times, not a lot, I would say maybe half and half of those times, they're unaware of what's happening. Like, their body gets taken over, and then when they come back, they're like, what happened? I don't know what happened. But occasionally they'll be like, I was there, but I couldn't do anything about it. But again, I've always found it frustrating that people don't, like, feel anything from that. Like, the episode where Picard lives an entire other life and then just comes back as himself. I'm like, that would damage you beyond belief, dude. And he just shakes it off. He's like, oh, well, that was wild. I'm like, what do you mean that was wild? That was insane. How are you not in therapy 24/7 because of that?
Then yeah, and the episode ends with Molenlock managing to escape again, which I feel was kind of expected. Like,
yeah.
They were bound to escape again. They weren't going to get caught this time around because we're only halfway through the season. So it was expected they were going to escape again. Honestly, I thought they were going to steal the Enterprise and escape on the ISS Enterprise, which would have been kind of funny. Because it would have been yet another instance of the Enterprise being stolen. But it was almost a bit of a shame that they didn't, and they just got away on some other thing. And yeah, that's where the Enterprise ends, with this mysterious vial, which came with the clue, which points the way to the next clue.
I'm curious as to what this fluid is that they're going to study. I thought they were going to end the episode with scanning it and then saying like, oh, it's this, and then end the episode there, but you don't find out. So I am curious, like, what is this stuff? Is it genetic material that will lead you to a person or a planet where the next clue is, or something entirely different that I have no idea? Like, I'm curious. And yeah, I did kind of expect Molenlock to escape, but I could have also seen them like taken to the brig of Discovery and then escaping in the next episode. But I think it was clear to everyone who knows anything about a story, like, well, obviously they're going to get away. So wasn't a surprise there for sure.
And yeah, I mean, I have nothing more to say about this particular episode. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No. I thought it was alright. A little weaker than the last episode. Maybe slightly better than like the second, or not the second episode, maybe slightly better than the first episode, the premiere. But yeah, I just thought it was alright, kind of somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I'd agree. It was just another okay episode. But yeah, let us know in the comments what you thought of this particular episode, what you think about the reveal of what the Breen are. Does the design of the ISS Enterprise annoy you like it annoys me?
Or does it not, like me?
Let me know down in the comments, or let us know down in the comments. And obviously we will see you in the next episode for the next episode of Discovery. But until then, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.